What's goody? What's goody? What's goody? Thank you for joining me. This is Old York Gritty, and I am Juice Warner. Today, wait, hold on a minute. I think I gotta change that. What is spirituality and all of that? How was that even up there? Um, okay, well, I'll just change it later. Nonetheless, here we go, right? Now, as you can see under here, I start off with, the Temple of Caesar. Now, the reason why I do that is one, to show you there's a great plot, right? There's a great plot. And in that plot, it shows this system, right? This guiding the people in a direction. Because if you understand that Julius Caesar was turned into Jesus Christ, you will get to understand how they're using the people today to shift and keep a new system abroad. So they attack in different areas in different way. And I'm sorry to say, the black man gets the short end of the stick because we're dealing with people within our community who benefit off of the removal, meaning that if you're removed, right, they feel like, say it's the movies and you see the future and you see like them one or two black people in the future. These are the people who think that they're gonna be that person because they're gonna help remove you. So when we talk about the gangs, which I'm gonna get into even deeper, but we will be covering that in this series right here, right? And so as we talk, it's going to reveal, yes, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification so you can get constant updates whenever we are filming or live, should I say, right? Well, anyway, we will be getting into all of this. I will be explaining, the Moors, Princ Hall, Freemasons, the Shriners, and all of these different things, gang affiliation through, especially in Chicago, right? And, in another series, I will be covering the Bloods and the Crips, but in this we will be having a lot deeper understanding into the gangs and how they are used in this system. And I just want to see something here so I can move myself over. All right, pardon me real quick. All right. So I can, that way when I point stuff out, we could I can be able to do it correctly. So anyway, we will be getting into this right now. All right. So let's slide over. Let me bring this up. All right. Okay. Hold on. Go up to the top here. All right. Now I'm hoping I can do this in an hour and a half. I doubt it, but we will be giving it a shot. All right. Let's go. Let me show my desktop here. Well, you know what? Oh, hold on. Let me put this up. Okay. So now we got just the screen. All right. Okay. So first we're going to start off with the Temple of Caesar, or Temple of Divus Lunius, also known as the Temple of the what? Deified Julius Caesar. Why is it not going up any higher? the deified Julius Caesar, right? And so if you know what deified is, you know that means, basically made into a god, right? So, you know how they use these different things, the Haroon, which, we're going to be touching on in a second, and, the temple of the comet star. So as they say, as above is below, they use those things, to shift the people in that time as well as today, right? So is an ancient structure in the Roman Forum or Rome, Italy, located near the Regia and the Temple of Vesta, right? So these are the things you should want to go and do some research on. I'm just skimming through this part because I already did a show on, the Vatican and turning Jesus into Julius Caesar. So if you want, I'll pin that up there. I wish I known that I would have. Hold on a minute here. Let me. Nah, don't worry. But I was actually gonna, fix it so my hand and all of that can go up to the top. But nonetheless, right. So we got, the comet, and so we go Caesar's comet, Julian star of Caesar, comet Caesar, the greatest comet of 44 BC. So remember, Julius Caesar died in 44 BC. Jesus comes around roughly 70 years later, because you had, right, Christianity, we could say, started in 2000. So let's say 44 years later, they was able to transform a system and turn in Julius Caesar into God. And then after that, I think it was 30 years or something like that, right? After that Islam came about, right? So you see this connection, right? I'll get all of that information on Islam, later. Okay. Was a 7-day commentary outburst seen on July 44 BC. Yes, old Yorkrite in the building, right? It was interpreted by Romans as a sign of the deification. Once again, you see that word, deification, right? The making of, this godly figure of recent assassinated dictator Julius Caesar from 100 to 44 BC. It was perhaps the most famous comet of the antiquity, right? So then when we talk about a Haroon, right, we think a Hiram Abiff, right, a shallow grave is a shiny is a shrine. Pay attention to that, because that's who we are going to touch. The shrine is dedicated to an ancient Greek or Roman hero and used to commemorate or cult worship of the hero. So when you think about Freemasonry, please always understand that this is a system of cult worshiping. We have the Yorkrite, right, which I haven't touched on the show yet, so I'll tell you now, which is based on George Washington. Then we have the ScottishRite, which I did a whole show on, and which is King James, right? So these are the two systems that's set up within, the main body of Freemasonry, right? So, of the heroes, they were often erected over his or her supposed tomb, meaning that the body was not there, but this is where the tomb would be, right? So then let's talk, what is a shrine, right? Scranian, right? Case or chest of books or papers. Old French, escrien. Box or case is a sacred or holy space dedicated to a specific deity, ancestor, hero, martyr, saint, daemon, right? Or similar figures of respect, wherein they are ventured and worshipped. Shrines often contain idols, relics, and other such objects associated with the figure being ventured, right? Venerated. A shrine to which votive offerings are made is called an altar, right? Shrines are often in many of the world's religions, including, if you notice how I turned them red, because it's going to play a part, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Chinese folk religions, Shinto, indigenous Philippine folk religions, and Asatrua, as well as secular and non-religious settings such as a war memorial. Shrines can be found in various settings such as church, temples, cemeteries, museums, or in the home. However, portable shrines are also found in some cultures. All right, so then we go into the next section here. Shriners International. So we know that a shrine is dedicated to, right, the dead. So who are the Shriners with, and who are they working to build this system on? So we are, like I said, we know what a shrine is. So now we go into Shriners International, formerly known as the Ancient Arabic Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, AAONMS, is an American Masonic society established in 1870 and is headquartered in Tampa, Florida. Shriners International described itself as a fraternity based on fun, fellowship, and the Masonic principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth. There are approximately 350 members from 196 temples, chapters in the U.S., Canada, Brazil, Bolivia, Mexico, Panama, the Philippines, Europe, and Australia. The organization is best known for the Shriners Hospitals for Children that it administrators in a red fez that members wear, and that its administrators in the red fezzes that members wear. I had to read that again, make sure I wasn't bugging out there. Right? The organization was previously known as Shriners North America. Right? The name was changed in 2010 across North America, Central America, South America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. In 1870, there were several thousand Freemasons in Manhattan, many of whom lunched at the Knickerbocker Cottage at a special table on the second floor. The idea of a new fraternity for Masons, stretch, fun, and fellowship was discussed. Walter M. Fleming and William J. Florence established a separate fellowship to fulfill those ideals. All right, so this is, William J. Florence, right? Florence, an actor, while on tour in Marseille, was invited to a party given by an Arab diplomat. The entertainment was something in the nature of an elaborate stage musical comedy. At its conclusion, the guests became members of a secret society. Florence took numerous notes and drawings at the at his initial viewing and on two other occasions, once in Algiers and the other in Cairo. When he returned to New York in 1870, he showed his material to Fleming. Here go Mr. Fleming right here, right? See him over here? He got his little fez on and all of that. Got his Masonic symbols. Right, you can see the what is that, the Knights Templars and all of that right there, right? Walter Millard Fleming. Fleming created the rituals, emblems, and costumes. Pay attention to that, right? Florence and Fleming were initiated August 13th, 1870, and they initiated 11 other men on June 11th, 1871. Right? The group adopted a Middle Eastern theme, and some established temples, though the term temples has now generally been replaced by Shriner auditoriums or Shriner Center. The first temple established was Mecca Temple, now known as Mecca Shriners, established where? At the New York City Masonic Hall on September 26, 1872. Fleming's was the first potentate. Let me say something here. When we think about, like the 5% and all of them, what do they refer to Manhattan as? Mecca. Right? So we understand that this system that we thinking is ours was established by somebody else. Right? And they gave it to us. And I'm going to prove this to you. I'm just pointing this out so as it goes on, you'll be able to see, wait a minute, this is not ours. They gave this to us. In 1875, there were only 43 Shriners in the organization. In an effort to encourage membership, after June 6, 1876 meeting of Mecca Temple, the Imperial Grand Council of the Ancient Order of Nobles of the Mystic Shrine for North America was created. Fleming was elected the first imperial potentate, right? After some other reworking by 1878, there were 428 members in 13 temples in 8 states. And by 1888, there were 7,210 members in 48 temples in the United States and Canada. And by the imperial session held in Washington, D.C. in 1900, there were 55,000 members in 82 temples. Keep that in mind, the word temple as well. By 1938, there were about 340,000 members in the United States. That year, Life published photographers of its rites for the first time. It described the Shriners as among secret lodges the number one in prestige, wealth, and show, and stated that in the typical city, especially in the Midwest, the Shriners will include most of the prominent citizens. Right? We should keep in mind the Midwest. Right? In 2010, Shriners removed much of the Middle Eastern themes. Right, so by 2010, they removed much of the Middle Eastern theming. Right, Shriners often participated in local parades, sometimes as rather elaborate units, miniature vehicles and things, all sports cars, all miniature 18-wheeler trucks, all fire engines, and so on. Oriental band dressed in cartoonish versions of Middle Eastern dresses, pipe bands, drummers, motorcycle units, drum and bugle corps, and traditional brass bands. Until 2000, before the being eligible for membership in the shrine, a Mason had to complete either the ScottishRite or Yorkrite system. So they had to make it all the way to the top before they can actually become a Shriner. But now any Master Mason can join, right? They move in, they taking over, right? In the past, Shriners have practiced hazing rituals as a part of initiating new members. In 1991, a would-be Shriner sued the Ocala Shrine Temple in Lexington, Kentucky, over injuries suffered during their hazing, which included being blindfolded and having a jolt of electricity applied to his bare buttocks. The jury rejected the lawsuit. That's showing you the power of these people that, like, they just said, nah, you know what I'm saying, you good. Now let's get into this. The Black Shriners. Right? In 1893, a black counterpart of the Shriners movement was initiated by John G. Jones and other Princ Hall Masons, initially called Ancient Egyptian, Arabic Order Noble Mystic Shrines of North and South America in its jurisdictions. Earlier in the group's history, there was legal conflicts between the white and black orders, with the white order from Texas right, filing lawsuits against a local black order for infringement of white Shriners' regalia and traditions. The white order was initially successful in squashing the black temple until the ruling was overturned in appeals in 1929. Right, so I'm looking for the original date here. So they don't tell you the original date. 1929. Protecting the right of black Shriners to continue practicing and fundraisings nationwide. The nationwide fraternal shrine family counts 35,000 members and 227 shrines with its own women's auxiliary organizations. Right, We will be doing a whole thing on the Eastern Stars, but if you've seen my thing about spirituality, you know that, I covered some of them inside there as well, right? They're primary recipients of charitable donations are the NAACP. Think about the names that I'm saying here. The Urban League, the UNCF, and various hospitals and universities. We know that the NAACP and these people do not do nothing for us. They just hustlers, right? So now let's take a look at architecture, right? Some of the earliest shrine centers often chose a what? Moorish revival style of their temples. Architecturally noble shrine temples include the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. I need you to pay attention to these places, because when I go into the gangs and the destruction of the black man, I want you to pay attention to these locations. Keep that in mind the whole time. Think about gangs. Think about, these cities with black people and our destruction, and you will begin to see this association, right? Let's see here. The former Mecca Temple, now called New York City's center, is used primarily as a concert hall. But this right here was down with them. What? Newark Symphony Hall. Pay attention again. Newark Symphony Hall. Right? The landmark theater, formerly known the Marquee, in where? Richmond, Virginia. Right? I know I told you about Granddaddy Shabazz and all of them out in Richmond, Virginia. Right? The Tripoli Shrine Temple in where? Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Let's bring you up there for the people to see. I don't want you to pay attention to everything. The Polly Rosenbaum Building, formerly El Zabash Shrine Auditorium in Phoenix, Arizona. All right. The Helena Civic Center, Montana, formerly the Algeria Shrine Temple. Right. Abu Ben Adhim Shrine Mosque in Springfield, Missouri. Now we don't know where the Simpsons is located, so just right, I always thought it was in Missouri. Right, that's what I'm gonna say. Murat Shrine Temple, now Old National Center in Indianapolis. Right. The Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, which was jointly built between the Atlanta Shriners and movie mogul William Fox. Right, and that's this right here. All right. So you see the Fox, you see Fox Theater, you see this is the shrine, this is like if you was looking at it from like the certain streets, but like from another distance, this is what you would see, as well as what? The Egyptian ball. So when you see this, I want to point out, when we start seeing this Egyptology and all of that type of things, understand that this was set up pre, any of this. So this was the design, right? And the Syria Mosque, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right? The Shriners controlled an $8 billion endowment as of 2008. A 2008 report included accusations of various financial inappropriate improprieties, right? In the organization, including not reporting certain benefits they received as income and knowingly filing incorrect tax forms for the hospitals. Other Shriners came forward with other complaints, including the mixing of charitable and non-charitable assets and the disappearing of money raised for the hospitals. So if you've been following as I did, I'm still doing my series on the master's carpet, and in there he's telling you about Chicago with the fire and the robbery of the people. And so I want you to pay attention to Chicago when we talk about Freemasonry. Now, anybody who knows, I told you when I was running across Freemason books and all of that, it was always had them stamps. Well, one, it would tell you where to go get it in New York, oddly. I think that it was for those who was peep the game and go to that location and be able to get the books. That's how I always saw it. So I never had a problem walking in there. It was in, was it like 24th, 25th, the wedge, like in Manhattan, is like a wedge building, right? And just like when I showed you with the spiritual movement and all of that. You look for these wedge buildings and you most likely will come across this system, right? So in there you go up to it was like the 8th floor, and there was like a giant room with all of these different books, and you can go in there and just purchase the books, right? That's what I would do, right? So now let's go over to the Druze, because as we going on, these are the things that you will be seeing the connection. As an Arabic speaking, esoteric, ethno-religious group from Western Asia, right? Probably should have put this up there, right? Bold you up too. Western Asia, who adheres to a religious faith that originally developed out of Islam, a branch of Shia Islam, although they do not identify as Muslims. They practice Druidism, an Abrahamic, monolithic, syncretistic, and ethnic religions based on the teaching of Hamza ibn Ali ibn Ahmed in ancient Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, and Zeno, right, of Satrium. An adherent of the Druze religion are called the people of monotheism, right? The Epitaph of Wisdom is the fundamental and central text of the Druze faith. The Druze faith incorporate elements of what? Islam, Christianity, Gnosticism, I said Gnosticism, Neapolitanism, Zoroastrianism, right? Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever that is, and other philosophies and beliefs, creating a distinct and secretive theology based on an esoteric interpretation of scripture, which emphasizes the role of the mind in truthfulness. Druze believe in theophany and reincarnation. Pay attention to that as well. Druze believe that at the end of the cycle of birth, which is achieved through successive reincarnations, let me highlight that. Oh, no, you already got it. I already said reincarnation, right? The soul is united with the cosmic mind. All right, so then we go on to the next section. Let's see the Druze. Look, they right on time. See right here at the bottom? Right. Look right there, right on time. The Moorish Science Temple of America is an American national and religious organization founded by Noble Drew Ali, born as Timothy Drew in the early 20th century. Right, based on the premise that African American are descendants of Moabites, right? And Granddaddy used to say all of that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull up his a page, right, and it comes out of that system. Moabites and thus are Moorish by nationality, right? And Islamic by faith. Our primary tenet of the Moorish Science Temple is the belief that African Americans are the Moorish descendant, specifically from the Morocco Empire. Now, let me give you a brief history, right? I tell people all the time, I'm gonna do a whole thing on the history of slavery. I've been doing history on slavery, but I'm going to just do one breaking down Islam, Christianity, right? And, the trading of slaves and those type of things, like I told you, the clean Africa of Islam. So when they make this claim, it's not far off to a large degree, meaning that, yes, originally there were many blacks who were, captured, but that was to eradicate Islam out of it, Africa, which you see did not work, right? That not to say that everybody who came to America were of this descent. I'm just saying, and this is why, they had, them boats named after these type of things, because this was a religious war, right? So Moorish descent, specifically from the Moroccan Empire, from that time that they tell you about Spain. The reason why they tell you about the Spain thing is because once Spain broke from, got their freedom from, the Moors, Islam, right? They, about 100 years later, with the Christians, they basically started this system, right? So just to give you that brief history, this area included other countries that today surround Morocco. To join the movement, individuals had to proclaim their Moorish nationality, right? They are given nationality cards. In religious texts, adherent refers to themselves racially as Asiatics, right? In the Middle East, as the Middle East is also what? Western Asia, right? We just said that when we was up on top there, right? Adherents of the movement are known as Moorish American Muslims, and they are called Moorish scientists in some circles. That's what I was saying about, if we real scientists, we would have to do our research, make sure things add up. So me, with this understanding is why I'm able to say what I say about this system, because it all pans out, right? Timothy Drew was believed to have been born on January 8th, 1886 in North Carolina, right? Sources differ as to his background and upbringing. One reports he was the son of two former slaves who were adopted by a tribe of Cherokee, right? By a tribe of Cherokee. Another described Drew as the son of a Moroccan Muslim father and a Cherokee mother. In 2014, an article in the online Journal of Race, Ethnicity, and Religion attempted to link Timothy Drew to one Thomas Drew, born January 8th, 1886, using census records, a World War I draft card, and street directory records, right? By the way, this is, right, Noble Drew Ali, but I want to point out the feet. Right, pay attention to that. Right, matter of fact, I should have did one for the other person. I'm gonna have to bring up too. I didn't think about that. North Carolina background, Cherokee mother. I already read all this. Okay, Drew Ali reported that during his travels he met a high priest of Egyptian. Right? Egyptian magic. So when we hear, this spirituality and this Egyptian and all of that, understand where all of this stuff is deriving from. When we hear, we're not African, all of this system of confusion has a root. Right? In one version of Drew Ali's biography, the leader saw him as a reincarnation of the founder. In others, he says that the priest considered him reincarnation of Jesus. We already said the Druze believe in this reincarnation, right? And we know Jesus, was Julius Caesar in this system that was set up. The Buddha, Muhammad, and other religious philosophers. Prophets, right? According to the biography, the high priest trained Ali in mysticism, right? Pay attention to this, and gave him a lost section of the Quran. The text came to be known as the Holy Quran number 7, right? So we see that right there, the Holy Quran number 7, right? Pardon me here. Law section, Holy Quran, law section. The text came to be known as the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It is also known as the Circle 7 Quran because of the cover, which features a red 7 and surrounded by a blue circle. This one has a red circle on it, right? The first 19 chapters are from the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, published in 1808. So he's taken stuff from this system by esoteric Ohio preacher Levi Dowling. In the Aquarian Gospel, Dowling described Jesus' supposed travels to India, Egypt, and Palestine during the years of his life, which are not accounted for by the New Testament, right? chapters 20 through 45 are borrowed from the Rosicinian, I'm sorry if I'm not getting that right, works. Unto thee I grant, with minor changes in style and wording. They are instructions on how to live in the education and duties of adherents. So this system of Freemasonry in adopting these cults, this is how you do it. These are just nothing but cults. They're everywhere, so it's really hard to, I guess, to avoid it. I've, known these people all my life. Just never, was interested in any of it, right? Circleism, right? It's a spiritual and cultural movement that arose in Europe in the early 17th century after the publication of several texts purported to announce the existence of unknown esoteric order of the world and made seeking its knowledge activity too attractive to many. So you have this secret knowledge, and that's what's attracting the people. Like I said, I've never been that type of person. I've can observe from a distance and see what is going on. That's why I never had to job. I've known these people, you know what I mean, in close and very close contact with them, but I've never once, became any of people assume that, because of my association with people, but I've never been a part of that system, any of this, right? Europe in the 17th century after the publication, where we at here, seeking its knowledge attractive to many. The mysterious doctrine of the order is, the mysterious, built on esoteric truths of the ancient past, which concealed from the average man, provided insight into nature, the physical universe, and the spiritual realm. Right? We know spirituality and this, that. So we got to understand that this system that's in front of us, what you see today, is a system that was placed already. So everything that you think and you understand is a part of this hustle, this scheme, right? The manifestos do not elaborate extensively on the matter, but clearly combine references to Kabbalah, Hermeticism, alchemy, and Christian mysticism. Drew wrote the last 4 chapters of the Circle 7 Quran himself. In these he wrote, the fallen sons and daughter of the Asiatic nation of North America needs to learn to love instead of hate. To know of their higher self and lower self. So when you hear these terminologies, understand that you are really hearing, right, this system, the Druze, the Moors and all of that. So don't think that you coming across something new. This system is just wording and people are being engulfed in it. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching Mecca and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. in the key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nation. The Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. Drew Ali and his followers used this material to claim Jesus and his followers were Asiatic. Now, told you, there's a book, right, called, Solomon and his followers. So you might want to look into that, right? Asiatic was the term Druze used for all dark and olive colored people. He labeled all white people as Europeans. Well, got that right. He suggested that all Asiatics should be allied. I agree with that. Drew crafted Moorish science from a variety of sources, a network of alternative spiritualities that focused on the power of the individual to bring about personal transformation through mystical knowledge of the divine within. Sounds like the spirituality group, right? And the interwar years in Chicago and in Chicago and other major cities. He used these concepts to preach racial pride and uplift. His approach appealed to thousands of African Americans who had left severely oppressive conditions in the South through the Great Migration and faced struggles in the new urban environments. Right, so while they was moving up there, this system was already being put in place. All of these places. So if you don't understand what Freemasonry is, you should take the time to really look into understanding how you put something in place. And even though it might take, it's not going to be an old, TV and radio, you get immediate reactions through bombardment. But like the spirituality, the woke movement and all of that, that part takes time because it's inside of these other groups. So the messages are within them. So you become accustomed to them to where you hear it. So then when somebody introduces the next phase, you associate with it. The mind and association is the key. Right? Timothy Drew, known to its members as Prophet Noble Drew Ali, founded the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913 in Newark, New Jersey. Now remember we was talking about the Shriners and all of these, places that they were set up. The booming industrial city, after some difficulties, right? Ali moved to Chicago, establishing a center there. I need you to really pay attention to how I'm going to show you all of these groups and even the mafia and all of these things in Chicago being this meeting place, right? We got the spiritualities. She moved, they was up in there. All of these different groups, ironically, around the same time, was in Chicago, right? Competing factions developed among the congregation and leaders, specifically after the death of the charismatic Ali. 3 independent organizations developed from this ferment. The founding of the Nation of Islam by Wallace Fard Muhammad in 1930 also created competition for members. See, that's the number one thing, the competition for members, right? Because remember, it's all about it's a new hustle. It's taking you from one thing. These are the new pastors and all of that. That's why when we think about Malcolm X, we think about get your hand out my pocket. Why would they be yelling that if we understood that when when Malcolm was leaving, right, the Nation of Islam. He was starting up his own faction of Islam himself. So please understand that when you were watching things, understand what is really being implied, right? Because the movie doesn't tell you that. History tells you that. Look into Malcolm X and you will see that, right? And I'll be doing something on that. But like I said, I don't really try to focus on just, because everything, you don't want to make it seem like this, you attacking black people. I'm just saying that this system is not for us. Freemasonry has done nothing for black people but destroy us. So when we see the black Freemason, we must run him out. We must run him or her out. We must expel them from this community because they are really working for our oppressors, not in the physical. Well, they do it in the physical, but in the mental of shaping you to help them, right? The founding of the Nation of Islam by Wallace Fraud Muhammad in 1930 also created competition for members. In the 1930s, membership was estimated at 30,000 with one third in Chicago, right? Ali believed that African Americans are all Moors, who he claimed were descendants from the ancient Moabites, the kingdom in which he says is now known as Morocco, as opposed to the ancient Canaanite kingdom of Moab. So we know that the Canaanites, we know who they were, right? We know the Jews, we know this whole system. So please do your research. Look up Moabs, right? Look up Canaanites. We know that Cain in the Bible left, right, and established this city, Canaan. So, and those are the Canaanites, right? So it's not me, making this claim. This is what really is. As the name suggests, this claim does not align with scientific studies of human history, such as the genetics of African American or genetic history of sub-Saharan Africa. He claimed that Islam and its teachings are more beneficial to the earthly salvation and that their true nature had been withheld from them. These are the things that you hear even to this day that comes out of that system. But understand, this system is the Shriners, which would be Princ Hall Freemasons. Right, so we understand that you can change the name, but there's a system where those, say you are Princ Hall Freemason, you can go into these other organizations and shift and move things, right? The teachings are more beneficial to the salvation, true nature had been withheld from them. In the tradition, he founded male members of the temple wear fezzes and turbans as head covering. Women wear turbans, right? They added a suffix bay or l to their surname to signify Moorish heritage, as well as their taking on a new life as Moorish Americans. Now, when we think about the Nation of Islam and the X and all of that, we see the same system being worked out. Like I said, some things I don't have an argument with, but training the people to still go from one slave master to the other slave master ain't doing us no good, right? This is why I do this, because I'm not with keep jumping around from slave master to slave master, right? and they're taking on a new life as Moorish Americans. It was also a way to claim and proclaim a new identity over that lost to the enslavement of their ancestors. These suffixes were a sign to others that while one's African tribal name may never be known to them, European names given by their enslavers were not theirs either. Sounds like Nation of Islam, right? If you know Nation of Islam, you might not know. As Drew Ali began his version of teaching the Moorish Americans to become better citizens, right? He made speeches like the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, in which he urged them to reject derogatory labels such as black, which is strange because Moor means black, colored, and Negro. Like I said, we do the Nation of Islam in the 120s. We'll be doing a breakdown. And so, when I stop and I'm saying this is because I'm going to make reference to these things as well, right? So when I do that, this will be also brought up, right? He urges Americans of all races to reject hate and embrace love. We went through the spirituality and all of that. He believed that Chicago would become a second Mecca, right? The ushers of the temple wore black fezzes. The leaders of a particular temple was known as a grand sheik. Think about that, because when you think about the gangs and all of that, you'll see the same titles and all of that being mentioned, right? Or governor. Noble Drew Ali had several wives. According to the Chicago Defender, he claimed the power to marry and divorce as well, right? At will. Think about Dr. York and the Nuwabians and all of that. And when you think about when I'm gonna do a comparison to Dr. York and Noble Drew Ali, when we sit down and put the similarities together outside of the pedophilia, right, we will see. I don't know Noble Drew Ali to be into pedophilia, so I can't put that on him, right? There's no record, as far as I know, right? He claimed the power to in 1931, Drew formed the Canaanite Temple in Newark, New Jersey. He left the city after agitating people with his views on race. Drew Ali and his followers migrated while planting congregations in Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and Detroit. Right. Finally, Drew Ali settled in Chicago in 1925, saying the Midwest was closer to Islam. The following year, he officially registered Temple Number 9. In early 1929, following a conflict over funds, Claude Green Bay, the business manager of Chicago Temple Number 1, split from the Moorish Science Temple of America. Pay attention to this, because this is what you'll see within the gang community. This is what we saw within the spirituality. We see the splits, right? So understand that's what's going on here, right? Because once somebody knows the hustle or whatever, they ready to go get their own. Why be under you when you can't reach everybody? Hey, I can get some of that, right? and then it keeps breaking and breaking. It's like being a giant drug lord, right? Take, the Nicky Bonds and all of them people of the 70s, right? And then, right, what's his name, Frank Lucas or whatever. So you take these people, right? And then when we see the 80s kick in, we see, the drugs distributors needing to get it in everybody's hands. So it didn't matter if you was a big time drug dealer or not. All you had to do was walk up Washington Heights and you can get some. You can just walk there. I mean, because I grew up around there, so I would be up there all the time. And sometimes I would get mad, like, yo, my man. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, man. You know what I mean? But as I got older, I understood that you got to get your money. You just advertise it to whoever. But the point is, once they did that, what happened was a destruction of control, because now if somebody owned a borough, then it turned into neighborhoods, then it turned to blocks, then it turned to corners, then it came to individual buildings, then it came to you could be on certain floors, just don't sell. You see, so then it put this power in everybody's hands, but that power also led to mass construction. And we see that with the gang formations as well, whether it be Chicago, whether it be LA, because we can use, I'm gonna use those two as references, and you can see the destruction, right? Based on that same breakdown and system. Drew Ali was out of town, and he was dealing with former Supreme Grand Governor Lomax Bey, Professor Ezzeddin Muhammad, who had supported Green Bey's attempted coup. Right, so they saying like, yeah, he was trying to break off, right? When Drew Ali returned to Chicago, police arrested him and other members in the community on suspicion of having instigated the killing. No indictment was sworn for Drew Ali at that time. And I say that to say the same thing about, the Malcolm X and, this wordplay and all of that, but knowing damn well, they killed that brother, right? Even though he was breaking off from there and trying to do his own thing. But I guess that's the reward. That's the system. When you win that, you break off, you catch the bad one. No indictment was sworn for Drew Ali at that time. Shortly after his release by police, Drew Ali died at age 43 at his home in Chicago on July 20th, 1929. Although the exact circumstances of his death is unknown, the certificate of death stated that Noble Drew Ali died from tuberculosis, bronchopneumonia. Despite the official's report, many of his followers speculated that the death was caused by injury from the police or from other members of the faith. Their system, it can backfire on you. Others thought it was due to pneumonia. One more told the Chicago Defender the prophet was not ill. His work was done, and he laid his head upon the lap of one of his followers and passed out. Take that in mind, right? The death of Drew Ali brought out number of candidates to succeed him. Brother Edward Mealy L. stated that he had been declared Drew Ali's successor by Drew Ali himself. In August, within a month of Drew Ali's death, John Givens L., Drew Ali's chauffeur, declared declared that he was Drew Ali reincarnated. Keep that in mind, right? We told you, that reincarnated thing. He is said to have fainted while working on Drew Ali's automobile, and the sign of the star and crescent appeared in his eyes. At the September Unity Conference, Givens again made his claim of reincarnation. However, the governors of the Moorish Science Temple of America declared Charles Kirkman Bey to be the successor of Drew Ali and named him Grand Advisor. With the support of several temples, each Mealy L and Givens L both went to lead separate factions of the Moorish Science Temple. All three factions, Kirkman Bey, Mealy L, and Givens L, are active today. On September 25th, 1929, Kirkman Bey's wife reported to Chicago police his apparent kidnapping by one Irie Johnson. Accompanied by two Moorish Science members, the police visited the home of Johnson when they were met by gunfire. The attack escalated into a shootout that spilled into the surrounding neighborhoods. In the end, the police, as well as a member, were killed in the gun battle. A second police later died of his wounds. The police took in 60 people into police custody, and a reported 1,000 police officers patrolled Chicago's South Side that evening. Johnson and two others were later convicted of murder. Kirkman Bey went on to serve as Grand Advisor for one of the most important factions until 1959, when the reign was given to F. Nelson Bey. Now we talk about the Nation of Islam. The community was further split when Wallace Farad Muhammad, known within the temple as David Ford L., also claimed he was taken by some to be the reincarnation again of Drew Ali. When his leadership was rejected, Ford L broke away from the Moorish Science Temple. He moved to Detroit, where he formed his own group, an organization that would become the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam denied any historical connection with the Moorish Science Temple until February 26, 2014, when Louis Farrakhan acknowledged the contributions of Noble Drew Ali to the Nation of Islam and their founding principles. But people already knew this. Like, I knew this way before, 2014. Right. Right. El Rukn connection. And this is what I wanted to put a picture of Jeff Ford up. In 1976, Jeff Ford, leader of Chicago's Black Keystone Nation, announced at his parole from prison in 1976 that he had converted to Islam, moving to Milwaukee. Now, remember when we were showing all of these different temples and all of that being, erected. So, even though this is way after, but you understand that this system is set up beforehand. Ford associated himself with the Moorish Science Temple of America. It is unclear whether he officially joined or was instead rejected by its members. No, he was a member, right? And this is proven if you know anything about the gangs, and we talked about the grand sheiks and all of that. Learn this lingo and you would know that they're all a part of this system. In 1978, Ford returned to Chicago and changed his name in his gang to El Rukns, the foundation in Arabic, also known as what? Circle 7 El Rukn Moorish Science Temple of America. In the Moorish Science Temple El Rukn tribe. Now they always use that, don't know. Listen, everything tells you. I wish I had a picture up, I'll do it next time. Scholars are divided over the nature of the relationship, if any. It ain't divided. Between El Rukn and the Moorish Science Temple of America. Ford reportedly hoped that an apparent affiliation with a religious organization would discourage law enforcement. But you gotta understand that the people nation and folk nation were already built on a system of this already. This is not something that came later. I'm gonna do a whole thing on Jeff Ford and people in folk nation, so y'all can have a full understanding drill music and not drill music itself, but where that system is coming from, the unification of the Crips and Gangster Disciples, the Bloods, and all of this stuff, to understand that there is a system developing, and if the adults don't know, they will be lost on and just sounding crazy, and the children telling them, oh, you just don't understand. It's right, because you don't understand. So I'm trying to give you some understanding so that way you can know, and you can also inform the youth of the system that they are being pulled into, even though it comes with this great black, right, undertone, but it's all a setup, right? We got the I'll be getting into that, right? So anyway, Moorish science scholars are divided over where we at with religious organizations would discourage law enforcement. Moorish sovereign citizens during the 1990s, some former followers of the Moorish Science Temple of America and the Wichita Nation formed an offshoot of the sovereign citizen movement, which came to be known as Moorish sovereign citizens. So as we see this development, pay attention. Like, it actually did a show on, the cults leading, people in a strange direction, right? And this is all based on this Freemasonry. And like I said, within these groups, there are the Masons, right? I mean, like, these are the fronts. So there could be a Mason in there, right? And then they can always keep updating the information on a scale, but that scale is only to cause destruction and misguide our people. We are being used in this as pawns. Formed in South America, members believe the United States federal government to be illegitimate, which it is, right, to some degree, which they attribute to a variety of factors, including Reconstruction following the Civil War and the abandonment of gold standard in the 1930s. I have some other things that I'm gonna add to that, but I hate to, make it seem like I'm co-signing this. I don't have. Let me say this. There are things within, the Nation of Islam, the Moorish Science Temple, that I don't disagree with. The problem is they are being used. So you can have some good information, but they're still being used by the white man. That's the point. That's the problem I have with it. The number of Moorish sovereign citizens is unclear, but possibly ranging between 3,000 to 6,000, organized mostly in small groups and several dozen. Which is not a lie, to some degree. In addition, the Moorish Science Temple doctrine that Black Americans are the Moorish descendants, Moorish sovereign citizens claim immunity from U.S. federal, states, and local laws because of a mistaken belief that Moroccan-American Treaty of Friendship in 1786 grant them sovereignty, which it doesn't. A lot of people don't even understand that America used, right, the Moroccans, who was really under European control. So it was not really what you think. And at that time, it was Europeans who were in control of Morocco. So they have a large misunderstanding. I remember dropping mad jewels about this, right? The reality of 1786 treaty was a primarily a trade agreement, right? That's all it was, right? Some people believe that Black Americans are what? Indigenous. Wait, hold on. Indigenous to the United States. Do we hear this? Not throughout the woke community and all of that. So once again, we see this system being played upon us. The Moorish sovereign citizen movement has also expanded to include what? A few whites. All right, so you know that this is all, a sham. The Southern Poverty Law Center classifies Moorish sovereign citizens as an extremist anti-government group, and it is part of the Moorish sovereign citizens movement, according to the Washington Post. All right. Tactics used by the group include filing false deeds and property claims, false liens against government officials, frivolous legal motions to overturn court and invented legalese, right, used in court appearances and filings. Various groups and individuals identifying as Moorish sovereign citizens have used the unorthodox quantum grammar created by who? David Wayne Miller. This is a white guy, right? An article syndicated by the Associated Press states that the temple has disavowed any affiliation with those responsible, calling them radical and subversive fringe groups, and also stated that the Moorish leaders are looking into legal remedies. The article also quotes in the academics who has been advising authorities on how to distinguish registered Tempe members from imposters in the sovereign citizen movement. Let's talk about David Wayne Miller real quick. Or David Wayne Miller, also an American tool and die welder. Pseudo-legal. You always hear them talking this pseudo, but they don't tell you everything that they pumping out is pseudo, right? Theorist and leader of the tax protester group, which I don't have a problem with. Like I said, listen, man, there are things that, I can't have a problem with, right? Just anybody should know that there are things that, you could agree with. The problem is, if you're making this up to convince the people to do it, it's totally different from letting them know, like, hey, this is just what we doing. Well, we just not paying taxes. We just not doing this, because you put people like Lauryn Hill, Wesley Snipes, and all of these people, into these situations because of this movement, right? Tax protesters, groups within the sovereign citizen movement. Self-proclaimed judge. Miller is best known for having created a version of the English language to be used by people involved in judicial proceedings. He asserted that this constructed language, which is purportedly based on mathematicians and includes unorthodox grammar, spelling, punctuations, and syntax, constitutes the only correct form of communication in legal processes. His views also include a variation of the straw man theory. People seeking remedy with Miller's syntax in court have not met with success. His language is incomprehensible to most people, and the pleading that uses it are routinely rejected by court as gibberish. These people have set the black people up in so many ways for destruction. It's amazing. Since Miller's death, his language has seen continued usage by other people within the sovereign citizen movement. Right? So then let's go into the Wichita Nation, right? And this is all made up. Right? The Wichita Nation is a African American group associated with the Moorish Science Temple of America, who claims to be sovereign states of Native Americans within the boundaries of the United States of America. Their name is appropriated from that of the Ouachita tribe, right? Who are also impetus of the Wichita River. I'm not Esponius, right? Of the Wichita River, and of Wichita, Oklahoma. So, they associating themselves and making this up, right? And this is how they get caught out there. The group is part of the sovereign citizen movement, whose members generally believe that they are not subject to any statutes or proceedings at a federal, state, or municipal level. The Wichita Nation was headed by Verdenise Hampton Gostin, also known as Verdenise Turner, and as Empress Verdenise Thierry Wichita Turner Gasto L. Bay. So we think about, again, your boy Dr. York in this same system. They all come from this same system, right? And in 1927 to 2014, she was mayor of Richwood, Louisiana in 1957, and in 1975 and 1976, and again from from 1980 to 1984, and is the author of the self-published book Return of the Ancient One. They pass this book around a lot, right? 1993. Gustin asserted that the United Nations registered the Wichita as an indigenous people, number 215. Classification. Now this is, I wanted to point out, right here that, this is her right here. And if you pay attention, what does she have on? Right? The Freemasonic fez. And if you look at any Freemasonic fez, you will see the same styling. The same exact styling. Okay? In 1999, the Southern Poverty Law Center estimated that the group had about 200 hardcore members, way more than that. Noting its popularity among followers of Moorish science. They're the same. A nationalist movement, and asserted legal basis for the establishment of the Wichita Nation is a theory that individuals and groups may declare sovereignty and may separate themselves from the states and federal governments, a concept easily used by posse commutive. Forgive me there. The argument is also made that Napoleon only sold the streets of New Orleans and a military barracks, and that the rest of Louisiana was stolen from the Wichita. First of all, whoever was there, they were stealing it anyway, like many other places. But the problem is, you're making up this tribe, right? I'm not going to argue it. If you can get yours off, I'm not going to argue it. I'm just saying this is why you're running across this problem. Various United Nations courts have held that the Wichita Nation is fictional, and that it is not recognized as a sovereign nation. Some Moorish activists have practiced hostile possession of property, citing reparations as a justification for their actions. This is where I have a problem. Even though their victims include other black people. Right? Like I said, I'm not above saying that I've never committed crimes against black people. You know what I'm saying? I was young, I'm not even going to use young. I'm going to say I was most of the time upset with certain people within my people. And so, the act of crime, right, is not above what I was saying. I was never swindling people and stuff like that, though, right? But still, just nonetheless, I'm not gonna act like everybody is above this, because I did just say I don't approve of this. So anybody could come up and say, yeah, but yada yada. So I'm just clarifying, yes. And so if anybody chooses to put my words on trial, right, I got my rap sheet and all of that, and I can get into all of that if they choose to, come at me and question me on my stance and why I do not support these lies that are given to our people. My thing is, we understand that the European does not play fair. There's no reason to use the European system of lying to our people and think that that's going to make us play fair. No, we need to establish our own based on what we know as facts and stop lying to each other. If you want to lie to somebody else, that's your business. My beef is, why are you lying to our people and getting them caught up and mainly dying, right? When we think about the gangs and all of that, these gangs are not doing anything but harming each other based on this mental land grab, right? These groups want to have dominance over the people. And so they must cause these neighborhood conflicts within the people. So that's my beef. My beef is that. My beef is the utilization of us for them, and they're utilizing you to cause this beef. So me, I have a problem with all Masons, all Eastern Stars, especially within the black community. I have a problem with the Greeks because they're all a part of that system as well, right? You got, once we get to all of this, there's going to be somebody that's going to say, wow. Even by now, I'm hoping, somebody watches this and says, wow. Nonetheless, I'm out of here. We're going to end this right here. Until next time, I'm Juice Wanna. This is Old York Gritty, and we are up out of here.